I'm supposed to have a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business, an 8-figure business, or whatever, because somehow that's been defined as success. But that doesn't actually mean success to anybody in any way.
Well, hey, Amanda here, and welcome to the Amanda Kaufman Show. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Gwen Bortner because she's so talented as a business owner. We were just catching up before we went live, and she shared with me that she's been working with 47 different industries, and she's advised entrepreneurs and professionals over the last 4 decades, which is just incredible. I love having that level of experience on the show. That's incredible. She has learned that when it comes to sustainable success, you must design with intention. I could not agree more with that. She advises women in business without them becoming secretly unhappy by discovering what they really want and aligning the functions of their business accordingly. So they rely on her to identify bottlenecks that others overlook and to craft a practical plan for clearing them efficiently. She shares her unique approach and insights on her podcast, The Business You Really Want, and she helps visionaries build sustainable, fulfilling businesses aligned with their values. Gosh, these are some of my super favorite words, Gwen. I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me. I am excited to be here because I do love all of those words and I live all of those words, and those words mean so much to me.
Yeah, I love it. And dear listener, we had the opportunity to meet through a business incubator that we're both in. And I was so impressed with Gwen's systems. She had systems for everything through the meeting you process, the follow-up process. You even curate a newsletter. I'm saying it publicly, but you can't just get onto it. You have to talk to Gwen. And I thought that was so very interesting. So I want to ask you, what informed your decision to say hey, I'm going to be the one that helps with clearing these bottlenecks. I'm going to be the one that's helping people build businesses that they really value, have boundaries they want to have, and so on. How'd you get here?
It's 40 years. It's a long and varied.
Did you know on the first day that you were going to do this, or did you come to it?
I did not. I started out life as a computer programmer. But what happened as part of that whole process was I realized all of the work I did was functionally in the business operations. All of the stuff, I define business operations as everything that's not customer facing. All of the behind the scenes stuff, which there's a ton in making the business work. And it was, I've done lots and lots and lots of things, but this iteration of this business, I've been an entrepreneur in a variety of places and spaces and times, but this iteration happened because I realized that people were needing a more holistic view of their business to be able to really see what was causing the problems. And what I mean by that is most of the time we start addressing symptoms and we don't actually find root cause, because often the root cause is not where the symptom is. So we think it's, a money issue, and it's actually not a money issue. It's a people issue. Or, it can do all sorts of very strange things. And if you aren't looking at the whole picture, it's hard to see that. I have always had this gift of being able to see that whole picture pretty quickly. And I realized I should actually be using this for much smaller businesses, because big, giant corporations always have access to that kind of resource functionally. They can afford it. They pay for it. They do all of those things. But smaller
they can kind of afford to be inefficient in places that would tank a small business.
Oh,
I've seen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And small businesses don't realize how inefficient they're being, because this is the way that they do it. It's the way they've always done it. How else would you do it? This is how I solve the problem. And it's like, no, there's a lot of different ways that we can do these things. But without a really broad experience base, there's no way to know that there's so many options for any one particular problem.
That's so interesting. There's so many people who are building businesses, and we see the 22, 23-year-old, rise up, make millions, that story happens quite a bit. And then there's the person who's kind of been chugging for a long time, right? And we see that quite a bit. And we see a lot of people that like start and never really continue. We see that quite a bit in business. And I'm so curious, like in your experience, do you think people can really see things holistically? Like whether you've had fast success, slow success, no success, like what's your measure of people's ability to like actually see things holistically themselves?
Nobody can. I can't even do it for myself.
Can't even do it for yourself.
I can't do it for myself.
Okay, well, we're stuck then.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's because we always have our own perspective on it and all of our feelings and emotions and all of the other things that we can't truly step away from because it's the nature of being human. And so being able to get an outside perspective allows you to look at things in a less emotional, personally driven way. So, and often folks will have other folks that help them do that. That doesn't necessarily have to be a paid person, to be able to do that for you. But we never have a truly clear picture of ourselves because we can't step outside of ourselves. We're always there.
I love this. And, I'm a career consultant. So, I was the 20 something that was talking to 60 something clients that they were like, who are you? What the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of attached to this like really big organization. We've been studying all the leading practices. We actually have the data that supports if we make this change that you're going to benefit from it in XYZ way. And I had to have those conversations starting from a pretty young age in my own career. What do you think it is that stops a person from asking for outside perspective? And let me rephrase that. Because, you kind of mentioned that like you don't have to pay to get an outside perspective. I think that is true, but I also think that it might limit people because they think, I'll just ask so-and-so. Like what I've noticed is like a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll ask their mom, they'll ask their dad, they'll ask, their buddy who's struggling in the same way how to move forward. You know what I mean? And I see that behavior repeated over and over again. Yeah. So why do you think people are stuck like that?
Yeah, I think you can not have to pay for it. But the problem is when you ask people who are close to you, who are easiest to ask that you don't pay for, they also have a little too much skin in the game. Mom has mom's opinions. Husband has husband's opinions. Wife has wife's opinions. Children have children's opinions that relate to more than necessary, that often put a lot of their own stuff into their answer, whether they mean to or not, right? So that is the advantage of using someone that's truly outside, right? That they aren't coming in with any close tie relationship where your decision will somehow impact them in any way, right? I think that's the first piece. Can it happen? Yeah, because I've found people who I didn't pay who were able to give me really good outside perspective, for sure. But I also know the people I have paid consistently have given me good outside perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have that other emotional tie to what my outcome is in the same way.
When I'm making a decision about hiring an expert, and I'll venture to say whether it's a personal expert, maybe I'm getting somebody to give me health advice or a professional expert, that's perhaps helping me with my systems or my hiring or anything like that. When I am paying for it, I almost look at it like you're boarding an airplane, you're paying for the priority pass, right? Like you can get that free advice, but something I do as an expert, and I'm very explicit in teaching and sharing this to people, but I have like a giving line where, I will for free consult up to a level, but then after that level, we start moving into my consulting fee and we start moving into my programs and we start moving into, how I can help you in a deeper way. And a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that, but I always think of it as like, you're paying for priority. You're paying for being on my docket as my client to get a priority answer, a priority response, and priority handling. Because authentically, if you are helping a lot of people, you start to have to do that. And so I always think like the first step for a coach, a consultant, we have a lot of experts that listen to this podcast are like, how can I get more business? Actually help more people and like help more people free in a really meaningful way. But then you have that giving line. And I'm curious, Gwen, do you have like a similar practice around boundaries, given that you have so much expertise to offer that, you do a certain amount for free and then you escalate? Like, how do you handle it?
I don't have what I'm going to call a real formal process where I can say it's always A, then B, then the line, then C. It's never quite that clear for me, but I have always been good about boundaries for myself. And so I know internally when we've hit the line. And for some folks, that line may be years in the coming. And for others, it can be after one call, depending on who they are, what my relationship, there's like all sorts of factors in there that I love to say, this is the algorithm, this is the formula. I can't do
well, it. Like you're saying there's not, but I'm willing to bet you, like, if you were really forced to write it down, I'm sure you could probably say like, these behaviors are boundary crossing and these are more tolerable behaviors.
Yeah, I probably could. But for sure, I'm more than happy to share my information on a call or two, just because what I do, much like what you do, is so personal. If you don't know me well enough, you're not going to trust me. It's not going to work. You've got to have some trust in me for us to be able to work together and to function well together. And so I'm willing to invest some time in that. But I also know where it becomes to the line. It's like, okay, now it's time that you pay me for this. And like I said, I don't have a formal process, but it generally is within a few calls of like, okay, so now either we're doing this or we're not doing this, and I'm okay either way. Because not everybody's ready for it at a time. Not everybody can afford it at a time. And so, all of those things play in, but I also know I'm not for everybody, and that's okay too.
And that's the whole benefit of like doing the free upfront, in my opinion, too, is I almost think of it kind of like the early stages of dating, and I think in expert work, especially, chemistry is key. Because if you don't have a chemistry that you can build rapport really quickly, then, I had a call just before this. It was so funny because it's somebody that I've known for years and he's going in a new direction with his business. And I just said to him, I'm like, can I just come at you hot and fast? Like, can I just like tell you what I'm seeing really quickly? He's like, absolutely. And I love those relationships because you can be candid, you can be clear, you can be helpful, supportive, and it doesn't take as much time. I think a lot of people will try to force a relationship where the chemistry is like really not there. And because it's not there, you don't have the trust and rapport. So you can't be direct. And because you can't be direct, you can't be candid. And because you can't be candid, you can't help. Right?
Yes to everything that you just said. And you started to ask a question earlier that's related to this, which is, how do you know it's going to work or not work, and how do you make it work? Yeah. And for me, it really is about, and why some people work and why some people don't work. And for me, it's about, are you ready to actually have the mirror held up in front of you in a pretty non-distorted way? Yes. I'm still bringing all my stuff to it, so I can't say it's completely not distorted. Everyone's bringing some amount of stuff to it, but I'm bringing it from a much more outside perspective than, say, your spouse is, right? Because they've got too many other things that they're bringing in, and so
and also your software and programming background, I would imagine, like, causes you to maybe be a bit more analytical or a little more structured in how you're evaluating these things. Do you find that?
Yeah, I definitely think, I test as a very, very strong thinker in the personality type, the thinker versus feeler, and very strong logic, very, all of those things. And so I will see things often before other people do, because I tend to have less emotion around everything, which isn't always a positive, but
you've turned it into a positive for sure in this context, right? And I love that you do like do you have a favorite personality test that you've done?
I use what is personality type, which is Carl Jung's, which you can see as 16 personalities or Myers-Briggs, or, those are all based on Carl Jung's work. And that's the one I have the most familiar. I used to do a lot of training around communication based on that. So I've got a lot of experience there, but I love all of them because they all tell you something a little bit different. I've used
it's like another lens.
Working Genius and Strength Finders and Enneagram and Colby. I could go on probably with 10 or 12 more.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love the encouragement to like take a few, because I think sometimes people get like really wrapped up and in love with the first or second thing that they try. And, I mean, I'm even known to like check out the Zodiac. I don't necessarily think that it's scientifically sound, but it is useful to have another lens to just look at, well, how true do I feel that is? What data do I have? And to just keep the exploration happening. I think that's super, super important.
Yeah, I think all of that adds information to the equation.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so curious, like when you work with someone, you are very values forward. You're like, hey, like if it doesn't work, then maybe we don't work it, or we have to work it in like a new way. In your experience, I mean, you've worked across so many different industries. What do you see as maybe the top one or two areas that you see people trying to force something that they don't need to force, that there's maybe another way, or, that where you see the most opportunity for out of box thinking?
So you did a podcast with Sonia Navarez a bit ago, and she referred to Solistic Goals, which she got from me. And
that's right. Oh my gosh. Straight to the source.
And to me, that's actually the place where I think people often try to force something is into the goal they think they're supposed to have, which almost always is financial.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's an easy goal to measure. Did I make $1,000 or did I not make $1,000?
1,000%.
It's an easy thing to measure. But most of us aren't really driven specifically by them.
I hear in my practice a lot of guilt about money, a lot of shame about money, about like, goodness, we could do a whole episode on money. So,
oh, for sure.
And I agree with you. Like in my own business evolution, since becoming an entrepreneur 8 years ago, I've had seasons of like, holy cow, it's raining. And I've had other seasons where it's like, oh my God, we're going to die, like for sure, It's kind of like what you said earlier, actually. Money is very often the symptom. It's not actually the cause.
It's not.
Right? So if you could kind of get out of the outcome attachment, for a sec and kind of go back into the key primary activities. And even if money remains your objective, it's still like that. You're not going to make $1,000 on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. What are you going to do, right? You're going to jump into a meeting, or you're going to reach out to a contact, or you're going to produce some marketing, or you're going to do a primary activity that's actually in your control. And if you line those activities up correctly, you make more money, right? Or you can save money. Like maybe you're rationalizing systems or canceling subscriptions, right?
Well, and the other thing about money is hardly ever it. The money is a tool to something else. And right. And so, but I think most people get very focused on, I'm supposed to have a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business, an 8-figure business, or whatever, because somehow that's been defined as success. But that doesn't actually mean success to anybody in any way. Not really.
Yeah, it's an incomplete answer, isn't it?
It's a very, very incomplete answer. And I think that's the biggest thing I see, and why I talk about what is the goal that actually aligns with your soul? What is truly motivating for you? And let's get focused on that. And most of the time, not always, because there are exceptions, but most of the time the money will then follow.
Yeah. Interesting. So good. Gwen, I know you do a podcast, right? Like, what's the best way for people to follow you?
So my podcast, you mentioned at the beginning, is The Business You Really Want. And that is the website, thebusinessyoureallywant.com. And you can find the podcast there. Are more than half a year, but not quite yet a full year in with our podcast. And I say we because I have a co-host, Tanya Kubo, who also is my marketing and operations person, and she is my outside perspective that I use in my business to help see things. And because she comes with a really strong marketing background and I come with a really strong operations background, we have great conversations about all sorts of topics focused on having a business that really aligns with what is truly your values and creates a business that's sustainable over the long term, which is our ultimate goal.
Love it. Yeah, that's so good. And dear listener, we'll have all of Gwen's links, including her social links, in the show notes below. Don't forget to subscribe to the Amanda Kaufman Show so you don't miss another episode. And, if you took just a few seconds to give us an honest rating review, I think Gwen definitely brought a 5 out of 5 for my review. She did a great job. But seriously, those reviews really help people to decide whether they're going to spend time with us or not. I really appreciate you taking 30 seconds to do that. And go ahead and flip this episode to 2 or 3 of your friends who are building a business and they want to build a business that they really, really love. They should definitely listen to this quick episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Gwen.
Amanda, thank you for having me. It was a delightful conversation, which I have zero surprise that that's what happened.
Of course, of course. And dear listener, we'll be back on our next episode very soon. Until then, do what matters.